An activist with ties to the Occupy movement has been arrested here and charged in the United States over allegations he hacked various government systems, including NASA and the Pentagon's Missile Defense Agency.
Here in Glasgow, studying physics at Glasgow University, been involved in a little bit in student activism.
One-time student protester, the man with a pop star's name is now described by US authorities as a sophisticated and prolific computer hacker. They claim he infiltrated thousands of government computer systems.
It's been difficult. I mean, I was already quite unwell. At the time of my arrest, I've had long-term depression and anxiety issues. Being arrested and well, that was stressful enough. Facing the extradition is kind of a whole quantum leap of stress above that. And luckily, I've got a great support network of friends and family, and the Courage Foundation, and lots of people on the internet who've kind of got my back and are in my corner, which helps. But I wouldn't wish this on anyone.
Today, Lauri Love appears in court to hear the final arguments in his extradition hearing. That will decide whether he'll be sent to the USA to face trial for allegedly taking part in an online protest in which several US government websites were hacked.
Even with a guilty plea, I could expect 10 or 12 years in prison, which is wildly disproportionate compared to the UK. If I were on point of principle to try and have a trial, because I don't believe I'm a criminal, then the charges would be something up to 99 years, which is just unimaginable.
The protests, or hacks, called Operation Last Resort, were launched by Anonymous in response to the death of this man, Aaron Swartz. Swartz downloaded thousands of scientific articles at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. He was arrested and charged with computer fraud.
He was faced with the same thing I'm facing, really, which is a choice between saying that you're guilty of something you don't believe is wrong and still going to jail, still paying a lot of money, or standing up and facing a much worse prospect. He was facing many years in jail, millions in fines. Unfortunately and tragically, he committed suicide.
This is a house set aside for people using technology for social change, and there is a broader point in this case. At what point does online activism protest become sabotage?
There is a precedent for Love's case. In 2012, the then Home Secretary, Theresa May, intervened to prevent Gary McKinnon, who allegedly hacked the US Department of Defense, being extradited to the US. Like McKinnon, Love has Asperger's and depression. The court has already heard that there is a significant chance he could kill himself if extradited.
It's always very difficult to challenge extradition. The courts tend to proceed on the basis that every extradition request is made in good faith, and it's quid pro quo. So when we want someone extradited for a crime, we hope that our requests are treated with the seriousness they deserve. However, it seems that he does have a number of good arguments to raise, and so although it will be an uphill struggle, it's not a foregone conclusion.
Love was first arrested in 2013, and a decision is not expected until later this summer. And whatever the judge rules, an appeal will be possible, prolonging an already drawn-out affair.
The whole process has changed a lot of my attitudes, as any difficult life experience should be a learning opportunity. So I think I will draw many lessons on this, but I won't give up trying to work for a better world, so I'll just find ways that are less likely to result in conflict.
If he does go to the US, then what's the outlook? I mean, there's talk of 99 years behind bars.
Yeah, it's very, I mean, it's hard to think about because it would be unpleasant, I think. So yeah, he's facing up to 99 years in prison. He's facing procedures in 3 separate US court districts, and Lauri has Asperger's syndrome like Gary McKinnon.
Would that be taken into account?
Well, that's what will be argued in the UK to stop him being.
And Gary McKinnon, of course, he was accused of hacking into NASA, and the extradition order was finally revoked, back in 2012, after a 10-year legal battle. Right. So surely does that not, despite a long battle, that gives you some sort of hope?
It does. Well, what really made the difference for Gary McKinnon was a really strong public campaign, and his mother was amazing in keeping that in the public eye. And it's really interesting, even when you speak to people, you speak to taxi drivers, everybody knows that the extradition treaty between the UK and the US is unfair. It's sort of a basic thing that everybody knows.
The court has ruled against the National Crime Agency's attempts to force an alleged cyber hacker to give up his encrypted computer passwords. The judge threw the case out, saying that the security agency had tried to use the powers of the court to bypass the law and its safeguards.
The United States government, and also I think to a large extent the UK government, is waging a war against information activists that they feel are a threat total control of information, and that's really what I think this is about, is who controls information in the digital age. And I think the governments in the United States and the UK seek a monopoly on that information that I think is just improper and is bad for functioning democracies.
A statement from Janet Sharp. Janet Sharp is the mother of Gary McKinnon. Gary McKinnon was in a very similar situation to myself for a long time, 10 years. His extradition was eventually refused on human rights grounds because of his Asperger's syndrome. Then the law was changed so that the Home Secretary wouldn't be put in a tricky situation again. And that change of the law was called the forum bar. We have argued the forum bar, and we're hoping it will be effective. It's not been effective so far. This is the best test case. So because Gary and his family went through 10 years of ordeals, and we don't want the changes to be made afterwards to be lip service, I'm really hoping that when this decision comes, and we don't know when that will be, sorry, but in maybe a month or two, the extradition will be refused because of the forum bar, and then Gary can know that it wasn't for nothing. You know, he managed to make the law a little bit fairer. 3 long days of hearing. It's now done and dusted. We have a date for the verdict, September the 16th. We hope and optimistically believe that the court will rule against extradition.
The US counsel was quite dismissive of your quite a few of your arguments, especially with regard to your mental health condition. I mean, what was your feeling about that?
So, in a way, the barrister for the CPS representing America had the hardest job in the room, which was to argue the unarguable. His job was to call into dispute the evidence. Unfortunately, he's not a medical professional. We heard from 2 or 3 medical professionals. We heard from 3 or 4 professionals on the American justice system. The US didn't bring a case, they didn't bring a single witness, they didn't attempt to refute the claims that I might suffer from a ridiculous sentence, that I might be treated inhumanely, I might be effectively tortured because of my mental health difficulties. So it was harrowing to suffer the insinuation that I might have made this all up, and I've wrestled with mental health difficulties all my life. But that's part of this game, and I don't think the court was swayed by those arguments. And so, and I think increasingly, as there's better public understanding and perception of mental health, it'll be harder and harder to make those kinds of arguments. The US, in preparing its submissions, they didn't speak to any of the alleged victims. I don't doubt that there was compromises. I don't doubt that compromises cost money to fix, and it also costs money to make things secure in the first place. It's better to spend that money up front than to have to spend it when you find out the hard way. It doesn't necessarily mean that you can say that it costs millions and millions of dollars. I think the interest of justice will be served by a prosecution in the UK, and if the victims want to have a say in that, they can take part in that proceeding.
What was your feeling about the summing up of the case today?
Well, I mean, it was interesting. The silence from expert witnesses to back up the US government's assertions was deafening. I mean, Peter Caldwell made statements but didn't back them up with a single expert witness, which says a lot.
Aaron Swartz was killed because he faced an impossible choice. Killed because he was forced into playing a game he could not win, a twisted and distorted perversion of justice, a game where the only winning move was not to play.
I mean, I think the most important thing is to realize that you can accomplish something, you know. I know sometimes you just feel powerless, that you're one small person in this world of big corporations and big evil people and big media companies and so on. There's just nothing you can do. But the fact is, a lot of the reason it seems like that is because people feel powerless. People are afraid to do anything.
I believe that if I was extradited to the USA, my life is effectively over, so in some sense it's as bad as anything I can contemplate. The US government has attempted to kind of fight a war against information transparency and against activism in general, and I've become swept up in that. This is my extradition hearing to the USA, or hopefully not to the USA. Might even need a third day, which will be annoying. Just kind of hoping to have this over and done with. A whole bunch of US government computers got hacked in response to the death of a young lad called Alan Swartz. The US government seems to think it's my fault and they like to lock me up for a long time over it. They want to lock me up for 99 years for it. Say about these sort of things. And they've got a little bit of a habit of locking people up for a very long time. That's Chelsea Manning, Jeremy Hammond, Darren Brown, and if they can get their hands on them, Edward Snowden and Julian Assange probably.
What are your best hope from this one?
That the extradition will be refused because of the forum bar, which is the changes in the law they made after Gary McKinnon's case. He was in a bit of a similar situation. He was eventually not extradited because of his mental health, and they changed the law to avoid similar stalemate, similar kind of legal hold-up. So hopefully this works. The extradition is refused. If I'm prosecuted, it's here in the UK where I'll get a reasonable chance at a fair trial, and I won't spend decades in prison, which is not really the best use of my time, and is of no benefit to society really.
Because I had believed so long that change was impossible, it precluded me from taking any actions that could have caused that change. And so I think the first step for everyone out there is just to believe that you can accomplish something. Because once you believe that, you're half the way to actually